What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Rumpier Sports Week 11 preview show. We're going to break down and kind of like a first look on FanDuel, DraftKings. We'll kind of go position by position, talk about some prices that stand out. We'll talk about some injury news that we might be waiting on, and we'll talk about some games that we might be looking to target. Before we get into all that, I'm going to bring in my two guys, Mangone and Title. We were talking about a little bit before we hopped on here. Obviously I'm a big backer of the Rams futures. Man, after last night, I'm not feeling as good about that. I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. Title, what was your takeaway from that shitty Rams performance last night?
Yeah, I mean, you knew what San Fran was going to do. They were literally just going to pound it down your throat every single play, and somehow the Rams still couldn't adjust. You got to make Jimmy G beat you at that point. It was very, very disappointing, hurtful performance. Thankfully, we talked about it on the show a little bit, us three. We all liked the Rams side. I just didn't bet it because when the line looked that trappy, which 3.5, I was like, wow, the Rams are so much better. Jimmy G, it just set up, I thought, the Rams, but turns out it was pretty trappy. Hey, I have futures on the Chargers, so I'm right in your boat, except I'm in a worse spot than you. They aren't doing me any favors either. So yeah. I'm cheering for the Packers at the end of the day. Now that they absolutely hurt my feelings last week when I was all over Ross and that whole game is a stack, hurt my feelings for in my pocket, but maybe Green Bay's defense really is that legit. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going back to my hometown team, though, and that's why I'm riding. Them and the Chargers are what I hope.
Yeah, no, I mean, another takeaway from last week, the Chiefs. I mean, I don't know if it was just that matchup against the Raiders, but looking like the Chiefs of old. So we'll see. I mean, it's crazy how quickly things can change. I mean, just like boom. I mean, the Rams 3 weeks ago looked like the best team in football, hands down. Now they look like complete dog shit, and it just like opens up the world. And you got other teams that are starting to play better. So it's going to be a very interesting finish here for the regular season. Mangone, any takeaways from that game last night, or I guess week 10 in general?
Yeah, I mean, people forget, so last year, if we look at the Bucks, they looked like a disaster in November. They were not looking good. The league
very true.
The Chargers haven't been as good since they lost one of their offensive linemen about 4 weeks ago or so for the season. We saw last year with the Packers. Title, you can attest. Packers lost Bakhtiari. It was like you couldn't survive after that. What happened to the Chiefs last year? They lost Eric Fisher. They looked like a disaster in the Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, there's going to be injuries that happen over the next 2 months. We don't know who's going to win the Super Bowl right now. It's just things are going to change. You're going to see a team lose someone and be like, man, their Super Bowl hopes are probably done because they lost this guy. That's just how it goes in the NFL. And we don't really know who's going to be the team right now. Just because one team looks good this week, it really doesn't matter. It's all about just getting to the playoffs. And once you get to the playoffs, you hope your quarterback gets hot. You got a healthy enough team and you kind of get the job done and get a little bit lucky. It's just really that simple. So I don't think your Rams ticket is as bad as you think, Coop. I mean, they could look great in 4 weeks and everyone's like, oh, the Rams look amazing again. They're the best team in the league. I think it's just one of those things where you just got to wait and see how it plays out and hope that things just kind of fall your way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Another takeaway kind of from last week were those running backs. I mean, those cheap running backs absolutely got there. And, I know a lot of people were there's so many plays at running back. I mean, running back was absolutely loaded last week. But those two cheap guys, Johnson and Ingram, who were both pretty highly owned, absolutely, well, not absolutely smashed, but smashed for their price tag. And we're going to do a little recap on the Millie Maker here in a minute as well. But roster construction last week overall was pretty straightforward. I mean, you had a very nice base with those cheap running backs. You had, 3 guys that you could potentially spend up on at running back if you wanted. All the wide receivers were in pretty good spots. So, I mean, the build was pretty easy. It just, in terms of cash games, just came down to a couple decision points. In tournaments, you could really do whatever you wanted because of these cheap plays at running back, and you didn't need to spend up at the tight end position. So last week, to me, a very straightforward week. What we thought was going to happen happened. Nothing out of the ordinary, really. Nothing too crazy. Mangone, anything to kind of add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just fresh legs helps, right? I think one thing I wish I played Mark Ingram, but I didn't play him as much in tournaments. And I wish I would have played him a little bit more just because like the fresh legs is always nice with some of these running backs. So yeah, that's something to think about going into like the end of the year when we got guys that are going down. And yeah, I mean, running back doesn't really matter. Obviously, of course, if like your CMC, yeah, it does. There's a few outliers, sure, but you can play anyone back there. As long as your offensive line is getting that push, that's the most important part for sure. So, yeah, we'll just keep kind of moving along. We're going to have injuries to close out the year. We're going to have teams that just kind of fold over and give up and let these younger guys get some work. And that's something we're going to have to try to do our best to take advantage of.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the biggest takeaways from last week, I mean, just think about it, the guys that we were talking about on this show last Tuesday, and then you kind of pull that out to Sunday, how quickly the slate just changes with some of this news. So that's why it's definitely important to stay up to date. We have some sort of NFL show every single day throughout the week. So very important to pay attention, follow what we're saying throughout the week because a lot of things change. Title, any other kind of takeaways from last week?
Well, I mean, that was not the same sport, but basketball yesterday, our hardwood show completely, everything was pretty much thrown out when Jimmy sat and then Bam sat as well out of nowhere too. Like DFS, I mean, now with injury management, workload management, and all these sports, like the stuff changes so fast and it changes the whole slate. As far as what you said about like roster construction and cash games and stuff, I've never seen a train as big as what we had last week. I don't think it was like the Dak, Ingram, Devontae Adams, Ernest Johnson, like it was Keenan. I assume if you're watching or if you play cash games that whatever the chalky one was. I ended up pivoting a 2v2. And I wanted to ask you guys too, like if you I mean, obviously if you think a team's as clear as day, you play the best team in cash games. If you think two teams are really close or three teams are close, and one side's going to have a 500-man train, which I think there was in big double ups. I mean, it might even been more than 500. And then, the other side's going to have 10 people maybe or 20 or significantly less. I'm personally, I think you just completely go with the other side. You need to beat less people. If you jump that train, instead of a 50-50, you only got to beat 30% of the people or whatever the numbers come out to. Yeah. But I went Josh Allen and Judy over Dak Prescott and Mike Evans. I think I ran pretty bad. I did not expect the Bills to have 4 rushing touchdowns. Dak Prescott, only Mike McCarthy would run it on 4th and 2, Dak it in. Mike Evans explode. I mean, you run like a couple of weeks ago, I was saying I ran good. This week, I think I ran a little bad, but results don't matter. Like, what are your thoughts on that? If you think two teams are close, one's going to have 1,000-man train and one's going to have 15. Which side would you go with?
See, I was kind of stubborn because I kind of was debating the same type of thing, but I pivoted in like a different way. Like I knew everyone was playing that team with like Dan Arnold and Lions D. I made a pivot. I mean, it cost me money, but I played who did I play? I played Jared Cook and Titans D. Just felt, Dan Arnold, I guess I maybe underestimated Dan Arnold a little bit. I mean, his role, and I mean, he wasn't really doing anything until like late in that game where he got a ton of garbage time. But I knew that other team was going to be very popular. Like, man, I don't feel like battling with all these guys in every single contest. And I knew the other team was kind of better, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going this other route. Just in the hopes, because if I beat that train, like if my 2v2 wins, I'm jumping all those guys and I'm automatically cashing. If I hop on the train, I'm not automatically cashing. Like one or two things goes wrong, you're done. But if my 2v2 wins out versus that train, which I thought it was pretty close. I was like, I'm automatically making money this week. Don't even have to think about it because all my contests are filled with that lineup. So we've talked about it a lot, and it's hard to know like what's right or wrong. I mean, it definitely varies week to week. But Mangone, what's your take on kind of avoiding these train situations where last week it was very clear? I mean, it was super, super clear. And I've been trying to avoid them. I've been trying to avoid these trains. It worked out for me a few weeks ago. This week it didn't, and I still did okay. I mean, I didn't get crushed, but I would have done much better if I just stuck with the train this week. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. I avoided that situation, and I did much better. I don't know. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think this week, the play was to play that train and make the swap at 4 o'clock if for some reason you're in trouble. because then you can leap the train. Title, what was your, maybe you know this answer, maybe you don't. What was your, I know you said your 2v2. Do you know the projection difference between them both?
Maybe it was a 3v3 because they went Lions D and I went, well, the thing is like, because I aggregate and do a bunch of stuff. Like I honestly I'm so bullish on Josh Allen too. My projection on Josh Allen pretty much every week. I know if you listen to the show, you know I'm a Josh Allen guy, is higher than what the industry consensus is. So I actually had my own, like, I think it was like 0.1 I had ahead of the other one. And I knew all the other sites were having the other, like the Dak Prescott team. So the 3v3 was Dak, Mike Evans, Lions D, and then I went Josh Allen, Jerry Jeudy, and Titans D. So in my projections, I actually had the Allen 1.1 above. And so I'm like, I'm going to trust what I have. I'm going to trust Josh Allen. I'm going to then avoid the dupe. Now, if I had the Dak team a point ahead or something, I'm going to play that Dak team because I think that's best. But I'm bullish on Josh Allen. My projection on him was different than the industry. So I guess I'm not the right person to ask on that.
Yeah, and also the other thing, like with projections, though, it's important to like manipulate them and take your own biases into account. Don't just play the numbers. Like if you thought Josh Allen was a better quarterback play than Dak Prescott, don't just make it like a 1 point difference. Say, hey, it's a 3 point difference for me now.
Yeah,
like
I had them 3 too.
Yeah. Play around and move things around. Like if you just jam in these projections and hit the optimize button, you're going to end up on the exact same stuff. Now, last week, if you ended up on that, it worked out. Like you did fine. But that's not how it's going to work every single week. It's important to, if you are using projections, to put some of your own thought into it. Don't just jam these numbers, especially if you're someone that watches the game. If you're like a person that doesn't know anything about football and you need these projections to, build teams, by all means, continue on with the projections. But if you're somebody that watches that game, watches these games, watches these guys, you have a strong opinion on Josh Allen over these other quarterbacks, obviously. I mean, you've been on them all season, and for the most part, you've been right. So if you're that sort of person, it's important to manipulate these numbers a little bit, not just jam them in, not just, jam in the projections and hit the optimize button and play whatever comes up. I mean, that's where we see these big trains where people are unable to think for themselves. And like I said, sometimes the trains are right. Don't get me wrong. Like the lineup is right. It worked out last week. If you played that train, you did great, So it's a week to week type thing, but it's always important to, put your own input in there too, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I think giving 3 was too much that Title gave, but and
like I said, it probably was. Like I knew I was definitely more bullish on Dak or on Josh Allen than pretty much the whole industry. Like my projection was different than the difference than pretty much everyone else's. I fully admit that for sure.
The thing I'll say that this could help you for next week. So when you run your projections next week, look at your team 1. And then look at your team that's like a 3 project, like look at teams that are just a 3 projection drop off, like find something there and like look at them and compare them and see if like you think the 3 points. I just think that was a lot to give. But I also was higher on the Bucks and the Mike Evans situation. So that's why I would have went there. I thought Mike Evans was like almost a lock for me. Like I just thought like Godwin in a foot, like, I don't know. I didn't think he'd be healthy at all. And then of course, Mike Evans, he gets a little bit lucky with that touchdown, but the Bucks did only have the ball for 20 minutes. So they kind of got screwed there. So I don't know. You obviously just take it. And it's, again, we're flipping coins here. I think the best way to approach it with the trains is watch how it goes. And then because I think you had swapping abilities later on, it sucks to maybe have to try and swap off of Devontae Adams, but I think you had the ability to make swaps later on that I would have preferred to do and just watch it play out and gain information and then make a swap later on. That's how I think I would have handled it. Now, if that full train is all early guys, that's a little tough. And if you have a option where you can go to a team that is has a couple late guys and that early train doesn't, and it's not that much of a drop off. Now you also have the ability to make like some type of swap that could help you out. That matters too. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can play it. It's hard there's no exact science that says what's the right answer of how many points is worth a late swap. There's no exact answer for that, right? It's something you just kind of have to figure out and you learn over time while you're kind of playing DFS. It's not something that you just have the answer to easily. And you have to watch how the slate plays out. You have to be looking at ownership on everything and really know the construction of the full slate. So I know I'm like talking in circles a little bit, but it's just, there's no exact science. It's not like 2 + 2 = 4. It's something that you just kind of have to like figure out as you play DFS, and there's a lot of feel to it.
Yeah, and no doubt about it. And like I said, all these decisions vary week to week. Before we hop into like the preview part, wanted to just go ahead and recap the Millie Maker winning lineup from this week. And we're going to go ahead and put it up here on the screen. And so the first thing you see, Josh Allen's in there with Stephon Diggs. And I mean, it's a situation that we've talked about all season long. Allen has been spreading it out quite a bit this season. We knew Diggs was going to have one of these monster games at some point. It happened last week, 33 fantasy points. He's only 8% owned. Stephon Diggs was 7.5K last season in this spot. His ownership probably would have been like 20 to 30%, only 8% here because Josh Allen had been spreading it out a lot. Well, this week he kind of zoned in on Diggs. 33 fantasy points. You needed him basically to win any of these larger field GPPs. No runbacks again. So he played Allen to Diggs. No runbacks on who they play, the Jets, right?
Yep.
So no runbacks on the Jets. So that's a situation that I really like. Like if you're playing one of these premier offenses, and I know we always talk about on the wood, and I know Big T has a much different opinion than I do on this. He always wants runbacks. If I like a stack that's going against a shitty team, I feel like you don't need to have a run back. So why, the Jets are one of the worst teams in football. Like if you're going to play Allen to Diggs, why do you need to jam in a shitty guy on the Jets team where they're circling in all these wide receivers, no idea where the ball's going? I've been saying it all season long. Like if I'm going to be on a stack, I don't necessarily need to have a run back. Mangone, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so he only did Allen to Diggs, correct? That's it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So I think if you just do Allen to Diggs, it's fine. If you did like Allen to Diggs to
Correct.
Cole Beasley, like
Correct.
yeah,
Yes.
I think I want another one. If it's just the skinny stack, I think it's fine. But if you go for like the double barrel, it's a little different, especially for a guy like Josh Allen.
Like I said, I know we talk about on the wood. Big T has a different opinion. If he's doing a 2-man stack, he wants someone coming back. I just don't think you need it, especially with these crappy teams. Now, if the Bills were playing the Cowboys, and I'm going to go and I'm playing Allen and Diggs, yes, I want CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper or someone on the other side. But when these teams are going against shitty team, I have no problem just not running anything back.
Yeah, and I think the run back is good, but I also think it's important not to force it in that situation where the team is a heavy favorite. You don't need to just like force it in if you're building out your teams. And let's say you fall on a 4,800 receiver. Well, is the 4,800 receiver Jamison Crowder, or is it, I don't know, trying to like Jerry Jeudy was down there, but not as cheap, but you get what I'm saying. Or maybe it's Tim Patrick or like Jamison Crowder. I mean, you just go with the guy that's going to put the correlation, I think, there. Then that's how it falls. I would not force it in. I wouldn't make it a priority. I wouldn't be bumping, like if let's say you're doing 150 lineups and you're not getting a lot of Jamison Crowder and Corey Davis or any of those Jets runbacks, then don't and let's say you even bump it 1 fantasy point. Don't bump it 6 fantasy points to make it work. Like, what are you doing there then? I think that's wrong. So I think you got to watch what the projections are doing, watch what the math is doing a little bit. And even when you're hand building, if you want to make sure that you're getting all those, like if you're playing Mark Ingram, you're playing Johnson, who were 2 great values, and now you have all this money to spend at receiver, well, don't force in Corey Davis out of nowhere. It's just not necessary then. So I think it depends on that. I think it's something I think it could be 50-50 in that situation, but I kind of lean with you when you're playing Allen and Diggs. I'm not going to force that in there. It's unnecessary.
I got a pretty strong. Yeah. So I have been 150 in the Yahoo all the time and FanDuel. And I force a run back pretty much every single time, pretty much. Last time I forced a run back every game, except this was the one spot. I said when stacking Josh Allen and Buffalo that I did not need a Jets player. And there's very few teams I do that with, but with the Bills, they're up 35. They're still throwing the football, which is very rare nowadays. Tom Brady and Josh Allen are pretty much the 2 teams or the 2 quarterbacks on their teams that if they're up 30, they still throw the football, which is very important. And that's when us watching the games means a lot in tournaments, because if a team's up 30 and they're not going to throw the football, then I'm going to force a run back every time, because if the game's a blowout, you're not going to be able to reach the ceiling. So I think yes, in this spot, Josh Allen and Diggs, I didn't think you needed a Jets run back this year. However, most of the time I'm on Big T's side where I force a run back 90 98% of the time. Again, I don't know if that's right. I don't know if that's wrong. My logic is if the game shoots out, if you're going to take down a GPP, you need a ceiling outcome at every single position pretty much. The best way to do that is if one team, your quarterback throws a touchdown to your receiver or throws two of them, somebody on the other side's got to be making the game close. Hopefully then you get that guy and then just the whole game script's on your side. So you need less things to go right, just like baseball.
Yeah, but like, okay, what you just said though about some of these teams that are still throwing it in the fourth quarter when
I think that's only two though, right? I would say Tom Brady and Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at the Cowboys. I mean, they're the opposite side. They're down a shit ton, but Dak was still in there throwing it a couple weeks ago when they were playing the Broncos. So I don't know. I think when you're doing a skinny, just a QB wide receiver in some of these spots, I mean, more times than not, it does make sense. I'm not saying it doesn't. These good teams going against these crappy teams, I just don't know if it's an absolute necessity, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay, the rest of this team though.
Real quick, I have a huge disagreement on FanDuel with it because on DK, you can make the case when you do hit that ceiling, you get the bonus, right? The bonus is really big over there. You also get PPR, and on FanDuel, you don't get that. I think on FanDuel, it's not as important in those skinny stacks to do because of that alone. Also, the way the pricing is on FanDuel, you can build so many superstar lineups. You don't have to dig down for some crapper sometimes. So I think on FanDuel title, I'd have to like see like all the different teams that you would be doing it with. Like obviously Vikings, Chargers, yeah, you do it there. But I think there's more spots on FanDuel that you don't have to do it than DK. I don't know if you agree or disagree after hearing that title.
Yeah, it's FanDuel's the touchdown equity means a lot more on FanDuel. And again, like the same reason is I'm playing it because I'm expecting one team to score 30 plus. I think the other team's going to keep it somewhat close, so they keep scoring. I'm hoping my guy's the ones getting the touchdowns. That's a great thing in DFS though, and why like it's still so early in DFS. People are saying the edge is gone or whatever. Like there's no right or wrong answer to this. And I say like you have your philosophy and you pretty much do it every week. My philosophy is I force the run back pretty much every time. I watch football enough where like this week, the one spot I didn't was this Josh Allen one. So like, I don't know. I think you got to have a plan. You got to stick with it. And there's no right or wrong answer though. We've seen plenty of non-stack shit.
That's what I was going to say. It seems like, I mean, and I could be wrong. I'm not meeting for the main slates of NFL all that often, but seems like now the field has fully overcorrected where they're all just automatically building the teams the same way, you know, a quarterback, two wide receivers and a run back. But it seems more times than not, when you look at the guys that are winning these contests, it's not following that pattern all that much. And same with Showdown too. I think people over correlate in Showdown too. I mean, I'm meeting now Showdown very consistently. I mean, every single Showdown slate, I'll put the 150 in there. You look at the winners, and a lot of times it doesn't have all that much correlation. So I don't know, just something to monitor, kind of off.
A good talking point.
Yeah, it certainly is. Certainly is. Yeah, it definitely is. The rest of this team, though, I had another like mini stack in there, but I don't think it was intentional. They had Dearness Johnson, Ramondre Stevenson, and Hunter Henry. I am assuming this team was built just this guy, whoever Epi99 said, I'm playing these three cheap running backs, Johnson, Ingram, Stevenson. All those wide receivers are stud wide receivers, make sense. And I personally think this team was built and he just came to tight end and defense and kind of said, whatever two guys I can get at this position, I'm going to play. I ended up with Hunter Henry in the Eagles defense, and the team absolutely printed. You obviously also needed CeeDee Lamb this week. Keenan Allen was a solid play. He got there. But I think this team was just built on the premise like, hey, I'm playing these three cheap running backs. I'm playing these stud wide receivers. And then whatever I have at tight end and defense, I'm going to roll. I think that was the case here. And obviously the team put up 213 points. The Eagles defense was pretty, I'm assuming, 3% owned? Yeah, unowned. Stevenson, there's a lot of talk in New England that the work was going to get spread out at the running back position. Well, once they got the lead, you knew it was all just going to Stevenson, and he had this massive game, 30. I'm surprised, actually. No, I'm not surprised that he was only 3% owned because running back was just loaded. I mean, just absolutely loaded. So many different guys you could play. But all in all, I mean, the lineup, made sense. And whether or not it was intentional, he did have a secondary stack in there with Johnson, Henry, and Stevenson. So, Title, any final thoughts here on this lineup?
Yeah, I think this is a good team. I mean, Dearness Johnson and Mark Ingram. So he ate the chalk at running back, which I ate the chalk in a lot of my tournament lineups too with their pricing. But then most people were spending up for the third running back spot and didn't go the 3 cheap running back spot. So yeah, you get a different build by then going to the third running back in your flex. Once Damian Harris was ruled out, like a JSU was talking how he got on Ramondre Stevenson too. It's very like, you don't know what Bill Belichick's going to do at all, but you know that if one guy is going to be the bell cow, Ramondre Stevenson's a good running back. They pound the rock a lot. Everything worked out, and Bill Belichick relied on Stevenson, and he absolutely got there. I don't as much play 2 running backs in the same game, the Dearness Johnson and Ramondre Stevenson, but in this game, I thought it was fine because both their prices were cheap enough. Dearness Johnson has some pass catching ability, so I didn't hate that way. And then the Hunter Henry, like, he just thought the game maybe was absolutely going to go off. He still went cheaper at tight end, but he didn't play the Dan Arnold chalk or Jared Cook even. He went to the 4% route in Hunter Henry. And if you're just playing for a touchdown at that point. So he ran a skinny stack, Josh Allen Diggs. He ran the secondary stack, got a little different roster construction with 3 cheap running backs and 3 expensive wide receivers. I think this build makes a lot of sense. I'm seeing that he did make 150 lineups. So I'm assuming he used his optimizer. He forced some secondary stacks, some stacks as well. But I think it's a good team, and the ownership wasn't. He had one, CeeDee Lamb 10%, Mark Ingram 26%, Dearness Johnson 48%. Everybody else came 10% lower. Josh Allen to Diggs sub 10%. Like, sign me up any day. I think a good team.
Certainly. Mangone, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think this team was. I think it was built with an opto for sure, and I don't think there was like all these like crazy rules set in for it. I think it was just it's put together solid, and probably had a really good tight player pool, and it was good.
He won by 6 too. Like that's in a contest that this big, that's impressive.
Very impressive. Absolutely impressive stuff. All right. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please do us that favor. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps us to continue to bring you guys these free videos on a daily basis. Essentially, we have something coming out every single day. So please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We definitely appreciate that. All right, let's kind of talk week 11, just a little dip into the puddle here and kind of see what we have. In terms of injury stuff, I mean, I guess one of the big things is Alvin Kamara. I mean, I haven't heard anything else in regards to his status for this week, but if he were to miss, obviously we would potentially be going right back to Mark Ingram. Price is still relatively cheap on Ingram. Just trying to pull this up.
He's 6.8K on FanDuel. I don't.
Yeah, so 6'8", 5'4" on DK. Mangone, any news on Kamara where his status lies for week 11?
I don't know this news status yet, but we'll obviously get that. And if he it's a, just to give a quick overview, it's a rough week. When you look in the totals, highest total on the week, it's Bills and Colts at 50. And it's in Buffalo, right? And like, of course, like the Colts is like dogs, like kind of a weird spot for a team like that, where you want to be playing like Jonathan Taylor. And then you got a 50 total, and it's Seattle Seahawks and like the Arizona Cardinals, and that just sounds terrible. So it's a.
We do have Dallas, KC.
Oh 50, yes, we do have that. For some reason,
55.5. Yeah, but outside of that, it is rough. I mean,
I don't know why I thought that was a Sunday night game, but yes, that is on the slate as well.
It should be. That would be one hell of a game for Sunday night.
Yeah, I'm glad it's on the slate. That's gonna be fun. Another big piece of news is Aaron Jones too. There's no way he plays this week. So AJ Dillon.
Yeah, AJ Dillon will be like very, very chalky, and the Vikings. It's
what a beast too. I mean, just an absolute beast out there. Just runs dudes over. I mean, you love to see that nowadays. Because a lot of these guys are more finesse. He just runs them right over.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason they got rid of Jamal Williams. It's like, why do you have the same? I mean, they're not the same player, right? Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, but there's no point. Like you let the other one walk, and they should have just traded him. That was the simple answer, and gotten something for it. But yeah, AJ Dillon is probably going to be really chalky this week. I assume he is 6.2K, but I don't think that'll matter too much. And then obviously, if you look at that Dallas and Chiefs game, it's going to be a game that people load up on. You're going to have Darrell Williams at 5.4K after coming off a 32 performance. Like, I mean, he's going to have a lot of ownership because of the touchdown equity that he can have. It's just definitely going to be a week where, people are going to really key in on some of these 4 o'clock games. You got Arizona, Seattle, high total. Cincinnati and Las Vegas, a little bit of a higher total. Dallas, KC. I mean, only 3 games there for that, but they're going to be games that people are going to be loading up on this week.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, specifically that Dallas KC game, and let's just kind of hop right into quarterback. And on DraftKings, Petra Mahomes is coming in at 7.6. Price tag that he's kind of been around all season long, but the results have not been there. I mean, all those interceptions was not. I mean, I think they had the stat up during the game the other night where he'd only thrown 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Just a crazy, wild stat. Then he goes off and throws 5. I imagine he is going to get most of the ownership at the quarterback position on DraftKings at 7.6K. Josh Allen is 8.1K, Lamar Jackson 8K, and then Dak is 7.2. So those are the guys in the upper tier that are going to get ownership. Mangone, kind of talk me through this quarterback position here on DraftKings and anything that might stand out to you.
Yeah, well, Pat Mahomes and Dak stick out as 1 and 2 for me. And listen, when your guys actually start catching the ball and it doesn't hit your helmet or it hits your hands and another guy catches it, then you're not in situations where the game is close and you're making stupid throws like Pat Mahomes just tries to be a hero, like Carson Wentz sometimes tries to do, right? They just make these crazy throws sometimes that are absolutely wild. And Mahomes wasn't in a position where he had to do that. So it was fine. Hopefully he's not in a position where he has to do that here. I do think Mahomes and Dak are my 2 favorite quarterbacks. And I think that's really where I'm going to go. I mean, you can make a case Russell Wilson at 6'5". I know he looked really bad last week, but 6'5" for Russell Wilson is a cheap price tag.
He looked really bad. It was, oof, man. Hurtful. That was a tough scene. That was a very, very tough scene. I mean, your team though, both your guys' team. I mean, that defense is clamping down.
I mean, that's a talking point on this too. Dalvin at 8.4 this week we'll get to, but that price stands out. Any other year against Green Bay, I love it. But yeah. I'm starting to believe in this defense. I mean, Kyler Murray, Mahomes, and Russell Wilson, what they've done. This defense looks legit. They're the best tackling team according to PFF too. I don't know what to do with this Green Bay team. I've always picked on them, and that's a big talking point.
So I'm different with this Green Bay defense. I need to see it more. I mean, I've been alive for 30 years, right? I'm 30 years old. I've never seen this defense be good. So
that's what I said last week, and so that's why I stacked them. And look what it did. I'm not going to stack. I'm not going to.
Not sold yet.
I'm just taking the wait and see approach. I mean, just show it to me. I mean, I'm talking more as a fan, probably not a DFS guy, but show it to me in the postseason because, man, it's hard to believe. But, yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins is a guy, too, that, Packers defense could actually be really interesting in tournaments if you really believe in them that much, title, because Kirk Cousins, he is a guy that will throw interceptions, right? He can have some bad weeks here and there. So maybe they're a defense that we can take advantage of in tournaments. But speaking of the Packers, Rodgers has a nice price tag. I just do think they're going to establish the run a little bit for sure. So that's one of the fears, but 7K, Aaron Rodgers is obviously someone on the road. You can, in a dome, you can kind of take advantage of. And, you got Carson Wentz down there too at 5.5. I don't hate that with him getting a trailing script. So there's a lot of different options I think you can go to at quarterback this week.
Talk about Cam Newton too, because Dave and Chad's talking about it, but Cam's sitting there at 5,100 on DraftKings. I'm expecting him to start. What are your early thoughts on that, Mangone, or who?
Oh, is he starting? He really is good.
I assume he's taking first team reps.
He took the first team reps yesterday, likely to start. I mean, 5.1K, pretty good matchup at home against the football team.
Rushing upside.
If you need a cheap quarterback, I mean, it's hard. It's going to be hard to find something better than Cam at 5.1. I think it's a little different on FanDuel though. He's 7.5K, so I don't. 7.5. I don't think I'd do it there, but 5.1 on DK, and then you know the story. I mean, if he gets in the end zone on his feet, you're free rolling the rest of the game. And I'm guessing when these numbers come out this week, he's probably going to be pretty close to even money to score a rushing touchdown. So it's going to be tough if you're going cheap to not go to him. So I have a ton of interest, and it depends on what happens with the rest of these positions. Do we get value? Do we get extreme value where we can pay up at quarterback? Yeah, I'd probably still prefer to go to Dak or Mahomes. But if we don't have the value, which some weeks we haven't, and you got to go cheap, I'm interested. Mangone.
I think in cash games, maybe if you need the value, but the problem is, I think based on the DK algorithm, you won't need the value. I think the way the algorithm is built this year, you haven't needed quarterback value as much, and you'll just be able to go up there for Mahomes and Dak.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be one of those things. Maybe throughout the week, I'll get more interested in it, but it just depends on where kind of all the value shakes.
Yeah, and the problem is on DraftKings, like they've apparently like capped the price. Like the best running backs used to be like 10K on DraftKings. Now they're like no more than like 9K. The top wide receivers would come in around 10. I remember Antonio Brown in his prime. He was always 10K on DraftKings. He's like 10K every week. But now they've appeared to cap these wide receivers at like 8.5K. So I mean, you just really, if you go cheap at tight end and we get one value play, it's very easy just to get to that good tier of quarterback. But we'll see how it all plays out. Title, anything different on FanDuel at the quarterback position? I mean, typically on FanDuel, you just go to the top. I'm assuming that's where we'll be going this week. Josh Allen, 8-8, Mahomes, 8-3, Lamar, 8-4, Dak, 8-4. Right out of the gate for me, I'm most likely just playing one of those guys. Thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm even gonna throw Dak out at least right now on a Tuesday. Like he's fine.
There's not
like,
much of a discount. I mean, on DK, there's a little bit of a discount. On FanDuel, there's really not that much of a discount.
Yeah, him and Lamar are the same price. Again, if you guys watch the show, I think I played Lamar or Josh Allen maybe every single week this year. It's probably where I end up again on FanDuel. You can easily always pay up. 8-8 for Josh Allen, perfectly fine with it. A good total. 8-4 for Lamar and his floor and his ceiling, perfect. Mahomes in that 55.5, like fine with that at 8-3 too. So 3 quarterbacks right now. DK though, it'll be interesting throughout the week because I think Cam's definitely in play.
Yeah, more open on DK for sure. Let's stick with you, Title, on FanDuel and kind of go to the running back position. Nick Chubb, I'm assuming returns to this week and falls into a really good spot at home against the Lions. He is expensive though at 9K. James Conner, 7.2K, gets a matchup with the Seahawks. Encouraging thing with Conner, I mean, they're getting their ass kicked, and he was still in there at the end of that game and was able to salvage his week with a touchdown. Mark Ingram, a little more expensive over here at 6'8". AJ Dillon coming in at 7K. I think he ends up being a pretty popular play. Kind of talk me through this running back position on FanDuel.
Yeah, it starts up top at McCaffrey at 10K. He showed last week that McCaffrey's back. The old McCaffrey, Cam Newton now. I think that helps McCaffrey a lot. He'll get the dump offs, but also that read option with Cam and McCaffrey. Like you got to expect Cam, or you got to respect him on the quarterback keeper. So I love McCaffrey. I prefer him on DraftKings with the full point PPR and the bonuses. But if somehow we get all the value in the world at 10K McCaffrey, I'm going back to playing him a ton. AJ Dillon's a big talking point at 7K. I like him more on DraftKings again because of that price. But if Aaron Jones is out, which I think he's 1 to 2 weeks, they said 7K. I think Dillon's a complete smash. I think they're going to establish the run, like Mangone was saying. So much touchdown upside. But there's also good people around him. Like you said, James Conner, 7-2. Elijah Mitchell, 7K against Jacksonville. DeAndre Swift's only 7.5K. Like that range is really, really good. As far as if you want to save money, Darrell Williams at 6'3", like you said, I think that's a really strong play in the best game environment. And then Myles Gaskin at 6'2". He's taken over as like the lead back for sure. He gets the Jets that absolutely got carved up. But unless we get like Nick Chubb out and Dearness Johnson and Kamara out and the Mark Ingram and stuff like last week, I don't see myself going below 6K at running back. There's so many good ones in the 7K range and the 6K, Darrell Williams and Gaskin. So I think it's a stand-up position again.
Yep, I tend to agree with you. I mean, unless we get some value, I mean, a lot can change, and we saw that last week. So as it stands now, those guys up top are looking strong. Mangone, how does that differ on DK? Are we kind of looking at the same type of plays over there?
Yeah, the thing on DK, like you mentioned it before, Hoop, like these running backs need to be priced up more, and they're not. So Christian McCaffrey at 8-9, I think he is in play. It is a 43 total, which is kind of rough. But with the PPR upside that he has, the equity they can have in this offense, I think you do have to consider him. Like him a lot. Dalvin Cook, I don't think I'll end up going because I think just if I did spend up, it's going to be Christian McCaffrey or it's going to be Zeke at 7-7. I would much prefer Zeke over Dalvin at that price tag. So definitely going to be looking at him. And then the 6K range, you got, I mean, Swift is there. I mean, he's fine. I know he's a guy that's been popping a lot. I don't think I need to go there with Swift this week. I think he's an okay option. I think I'm just gonna be able to have AJ Dillon and have him as a really good option. And then James Conner, like he's still got a good price tag, like 6.1K. Josh Jacobs at 6K isn't bad either. You definitely have options here that you need to be, looking to load up on. Like Michael Carter, he has had a really nice floor with all that PPR upside that he can have with Mike White there. And I assume Big Mike White is still there leading that team and peppering the, running back. So I think he's in play. And if we, for some reason, have Chubb out, I doubt we will, though. I'm assuming Chubb will be back. But if for some reason he's not, Johnson would definitely be in play again at that price tag. It would still be way too cheap. Chubb is 7.8, so you would not really consider him there, in my opinion. And then Darrell Williams, like 5.4, seems like the best value right now on this slate. I think he's someone you're going to make sure that you're going to get exposure to in this game. And you just can't ignore him there. So definitely looking at Williams is probably my favorite running back value over on DraftKings.
All right, let's move over to wide receiver on DraftKings. And at the top, I mean, if we're going to spend up, I think I don't know how tough of a decision it is between Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. 8.4 for Adams, 8.2 for Hill. I personally think I'm going to just look to get exposure to that Dallas and KC game and try to get up to Tyreek Hill if I can. Some other cheap guys that kind of stand out. Waddle has a good price tag at 5.6. T. Higgins, for some reason, just continues to come in super cheap on DraftKings. He's only 5.4K. Amari Cooper, 6.2. I think that's a good price tag. CD Lamb, price has kind of come up a little bit, 7.6, probably better for tournaments. But the one guy I did want to talk about as a value play, we kind of saw a shift a little bit in the KC offense this week from Mecole Hardman to Pringle, who got a majority of the snaps. Pringle's only 3.4K, and he was out there, like I said, more than Hardman last time out. I think he's definitely interesting in terms of cash or GPP. We got to kind of have to wait and see as the week plays out. But Pringle at 3.4 is a guy I have my eye on. Mangone kind of talk me through this wide receiver position.
Yeah, I mean, Pringle, it's all these guys like Hardman, they are really cheap, but Pringle at 3.4, man, if you need the value, I could see it.
He passed Hardman like in terms of the snaps. So he was out there. I don't know the exact number, but he was out there like way more than Hardman. I mean, Hardman had it seems like they almost switched roles where Hardman was out there all the time. Now it was Pringle last week. The offense rolled. I mean, if you can get like the number 3 receiver in this Chiefs offense at 3.4K, might be something to look at.
Yeah, I don't know how much I buy as the number 3, but I wouldn't be shocked if it flipped the other way. I think it's better for tournaments than cash. I will say that. But if you needed the value, I could get it. You are going to want to look at the top at like Adams and Tyreek. Tyreek is probably my favorite of the two. If you have to pick, Stephon Diggs is not bad, but again, I don't know if I want to pay that tag. I want to maybe kind of get down here to like Jamar Chase at 7.2 feels like a really strong play. Feels like he should be maybe 7.8 here in this spot against the Raiders. I expect him to be able to play pretty well. So like that one, DK Metcalf at 6.8 feels really good against Arizona. You definitely have to like him. Amari Cooper at 6.2, another really good value play there. CD Lamb, let's see what his price is. I'm sure it went up. Yeah, he's 7.6. So I think I prefer Amari to Lamb this week because I think the price is just a little too far of a gap there. So that's where I'm at on that one. Michael Pittman is someone that we like to play. We think he's a really good receiver, and he's 6.1K. He's going to have a really nice script. It's a really good total. So I wouldn't ignore him. I wouldn't ignore Hunter Renfrow at 5.8. Jalen Waddle against the Jets. It feels like the Dolphins should be able to move the ball a bit there. And 5.6 feels like a good price tag for him. T. Higgins is 5.4. There's just a lot of guys I think you can talk yourself on. Like Jarvis Landry is now the number 1 in Cleveland, and 5.1, it's definitely tempting. Who I feel like us cash game guys, we all kind of can get tempted by Jarvis Landry from time to time, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And 5.1 is a tempting price tag, I think, this week. So definitely will not be ignoring him. And there's a lot of receivers like in a lot of different ranges. So I think there's a lot of ways you can go here this week.
Yeah, over on FanDuel, I'm in kind of the same decision point. If you're going all the way up to the top, Tyreek versus Adams, like I said, I probably lean Tyreek at this point, just get more exposure to that game. But a couple other prices that stand out to me on FanDuel. Hunter Renfrow at 6.1K. You mentioned him on DK at 5.8. His game obviously suits DK scoring a little bit better, but 6.1K, he's getting looks in the red zone. Like he's basically their number one target, passing target. So at 6.1K, I have a lot of interest in him. AJ Brown, only 7.2K on FanDuel against Houston. That's another price that stands out. Diggs is 8-1. Probably going to be tough to get to Diggs if we're playing, Tyreek or Adams. Those are kind of my initial thoughts at the wide receiver position. Title, what do you got for us?
3 for 3, Hunter Renfrow. Yeah, 6. I mean, the guy's just a really good football player. Derek Carr knows it. The defenses have been keying in on Waller ever since the first game, and Renfrow's just better on DK. I agree, but 6-1, like there's not a lot of value. The other guy that stands out down low, like Cole Beasley at 5-7, which I'm fine with Cole Beasley, but another guy that fits DK more. Give me Hunter Renfrow over Cole Beasley if I had the 400 for sure. Diggs, I agree with you, 8,100. Like, I'm just going to go up to Devontae or Tyreek Hill. I'm probably going to have one of them in my lineups. I would love to get both, but I assume that's going to be hard. I don't know if I lean right now. Like, it's such a coin flip. And unfortunately, I have a feeling that one of them's going to absolutely go off. One's going to be mediocre and determine the slate. Hopefully, you're on the right one, but definitely get one of the two. AJ Brown, like you said, 7.2K. He had a bad game last week, but the underlying metrics were really good. I still think that's way too cheap against Houston, who's awful. Same game, Brandon Cooks at 6.6K. I think that's fine. He's a number one receiver. They should be trailing. Cooks has been good all year, so I think that's good. A couple other guys, Tyler Lockett at 6.8K, DK 7.5. I don't know. I'm not the one to listen to about them. I'm still tilted, but the price is good. T. Higgins 6.5. I think that's a really good price tag. He's getting peppered with targets. Jamar Chase 7.7. I always love these Bengals wide receivers. Now they get Las Vegas, who just got shredded. So I think it's a pretty good week, but definitely going to want one of Devontae and Tyreek Hill, and then always receiver Justin Jefferson over Thielen. It's always that way, man. Going
Jefferson's an absolute stud. Like I love, but just watching him last week, some of the catches, like
he legit might be like he could be number one or number two, and like people aren't gonna say it. Cobb, Devontae, like it's such a good league, but he makes any catch that he makes every catch that you can make that anyone makes. Like
he's great. I love him. The only thing that sucks is I would have backed out of this bet if I heard about the squeaky wheel on him, and I was like, what is this guy squeaking about? Like, I mean, he's been getting good work. Like I was very surprised to hear that. So
he needs more. He needs more. He knows that. He's got to get all of them.
I mean, he's been getting a lot. Like, that's why I was confused. I was like, typically when you have a squeaky wheel, it's like, okay, like the guy got like 2 targets for 7 yards. The next week, like he had like 5 targets and like they were just bad throws from a quarterback. Like he's been getting good work and I love him. I mean, Jefferson's really good, but I thought that would play better for Thielen. And man, it felt like they definitely fed Jefferson up a ton. Hey, he crushed it.
Kirk knows at the end of the day, if someone's in his face, he looks at one direction and he just expects them to be open. So I feel one of these days. The thing about Jefferson this week, like I'm hyping up this Green Bay defense and I'm finally on that train. Like I probably won't go Jefferson after what they did last week. I don't know though. It's not a
guy.
Play.
I mean, he's a guy. I mean, we've kind of been saying it for a while. Like if you're MMEing, if you're playing 150, like he should be in your player pool every week. He has slate breaking upside regardless of matchup. Like in terms of being a cash play, in terms of being like a 3 max play. Probably not every week, but if you're making 150 and you don't have that guy in your player pool, you're doing it wrong. Like
I honestly think if you're getting exposure to that offense, you need to get exposure to both, like Thielen and Jefferson. Like they're just it's so condensed.
He's back on Thielen title.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I know you guys.
Personally, I'm Xing out one of them, and I'm just putting all my.
But why are you if you're loading up on that game, right? Like you're Xing on.
If you're playing that game, no.
That's what I mean. Like if you're.
I'm just saying,
I would play both because like they both have really good equity. Like one is touched, one has scored the. Like I forgot the stat I saw, but it's like he has 3, and like since like the past 3 years, he's like number 3 in touchdowns. Like I just think it's so obvious too. Like instead of playing the Bills and playing Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, a random running back, like just play that offense. Now I think if you're just getting exposure, if you're not getting exposure to that game, picking one is probably just correct. But if you're playing the Vikings Packers and you have like Aaron Rodgers stacks, I think it's a mistake to just play only one of them. I think you want to have exposure to either or, because if Aaron Rodgers is exploding for a big game, I assume you're going to want to at least have one of those receivers. I think it's a mistake not to get exposure to him.
No, I gotcha. Let's go to tight end on FanDuel, and to me, it's pretty simple. I think like Travis Kelce is 7-3, and had a stretch there where he did not look good. He finally looked really good last week, back to his old self. Cheap price tag, 56 total in this game, 7.3K on FanDuel, where touchdowns are so important. I'm gonna have a hard time not clicking that name. After him, though, if you want to go cheap, Dan Arnold still 5.4K, and I mean he just continues to rack up a huge number of targets each and every week. Kittle actually looked good, but I just don't think there's enough of a price difference between Kittle and Kelce. So for me, I mean, I'm going to put a big time premium on Kelce. I'm assuming he comes in very highly owned this week. I'm not worried about that though. Title thoughts here at tight end.
Yeah, I want him at 7.3 too, but like we're talking about right now, like the value on FanDuel, there isn't a ton of value. I like the spend up receivers. I mean, it's Tuesday. We can definitely get the news. I'm not paying down at quarterback. So like at the end of the day, if I needed the 1900 for Dan Arnold, I think I could see myself doing that. Zach Ertz is sitting there at 5K, which I don't like Zach Ertz. I don't like playing him. Another big piece of news, Kyler Murray's questionable. If Kyler Murray plays, like, and somehow I just need a full punt tight end and it gets me a Tyreek, Devontae, or whatever, like, sure, Ertz at 5K with Kyler Murray, I could see myself doing that too. Waller at 6.7, like I prefer Waller at 6.7 than Kittle at 6.8, I think right now, but I would want that 600 just to get to Kelce. So I'm looking at Kelce up top, or like I could see myself full punting depending on how the week goes, since the value isn't great right now.
Yeah, I don't hate that Ertz call. If Kyler's back, just if Kyler's back, I think 5K. They gave him a run at the goal line like when he first got there. So that, I mean, they're gonna use him in different ways, which is super important. So I don't hate that call. On DK, I think it's probably a little bit more of the same conversation. Like Kelce, Dan Arnold, still 4.1K, just continues to rack up a bunch of targets. Cole Kmet at 3.4. But really, I mean, to me, it's like the same two guys, Kelce and Arnold. Mangone, thoughts at tight end here on DK?
Yeah, tight end is going to be interesting because, like, what do we do here? Do we go up to Kelce? Is it going to be worth it? It's one of the bigger totals. It's 7.1K. I would like to, but I don't know if I'll be able to the salary. Also, punting tight end has been, it's been pretty good this year.
Unlike last year. Last year it was a disaster. This year it just prints every week.
Yeah, and I mean Conklin down there at 3.9. I mean, all these guys that we've been playing. Dan Arnold at 4.1. You got Dawson Knox, who has decent touchdown equity. I know he had a bad week last week, but there are guys down here, and they are getting a little more expensive. I'm trying to see. It does feel like we're starting to run out of guys, though, at like the 2K range, and we're losing them. But I don't know. Maybe we have an injury that happens this week that can help us out. I mean, trying to see if there's. I mean, it is getting rough below Ricky Seals-Jones at 3.8. We are running out of guys down in this 2K range. So.
We'll see. I mean, something could pop up too. I mean, it's like I said, it's Tuesday. A lot of this can change. What we talked about last Tuesday and versus what the plays were on Sunday, way different. It's just a first look, kind of look at some pricing and see what stands out. And I think we did a pretty good job breaking it all down. Any final thoughts, Mangone, before we get on out of here?
No, you guys had me curious. I pulled up the numbers on the Thielen versus Jefferson.
Oh, geez.
They're like
we got to send Mangone a Thielen poster to put right.
They're both good though. Like they're both. That's what the point I get. They are good. I like this stack so much. They're both great. Like I don't have to guess. Like I think this is the one thing I've been trying to do a lot of in DFS, and I think this is one of the things I want to be doing going forward towards the end of the year. And actually, Hoop, I'll ask you this question, since Title's only been playing for 2 years since he's like 19. So Hoop, you've been around the longest, right? You've been around longer than me. But I want to ask this. It feels like once we get to this point of the year, we know Cooper Kupp. We know, I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be like Derrick Henry, just pound people every single week. Maybe not this week against the Bills, so have a trailing trip, but these guys that just close the year out strong. You see it every single year. And if DK is not going to adjust their algorithm right, I'm just going to slam these guys into my lineups. I'm going to be pretty overweight on them. And then I'm going to make my stacks maybe a little more broad. And I'm going to make sure I play like these guys way overweight on the field than other people, because I've just seen it from time to time. It feels like that we see these players just close the year out strong and we know who it's going to be. Do you
Yeah.
agree or disagree? Because I think that's a approach I'm going to take in tournaments. I'm just going to load up on these guys. Like Jamar Chase is someone. I'm just going to play him every single week, be overweight on him, and just smash. Like I'm just going to make sure I have him on most of my teams in GBPs.
Yeah, it's a great approach in tournaments for sure. I mean, basically just getting ahead of the curve on some of these guys where, you know, they've proven to us the first 9-10 weeks of the regular season that they're a different player than they were last season. The prices have not adjusted. I'm all for that. Like Chase, I mean, going into the season, just imagine if you played Chase every single week going into the season, how much money you'd have, because no one's really playing him.
My buddy's literally done that. He's been because that's what I do with Jefferson. He said that's his Chase. He's done it every single week and
by printed.
He's been printing.
Yeah.
That's how you got to play it. Even though I've only been playing for 2 years, according to Mangone, like that's how you got to play. That's how I play NFL DFS tournaments, though. Like you have guys that you're bullish on beginning of the year. Like I do best ball drafts too, so I have a ton of like you just play the guys that you think are studs every week, regardless of the matchup. You'll get them 3% owned some weeks. Jamar Chase has been 3% owned. Jefferson 3% owned. And you get those weeks if you're on CD Lamb, like whoever it is. I think that's how you play NFL tournaments because there's so many games, so many good players in the league now. People get overlooked and just gravitate to whatever people say in the podcast and industry. Just play who you think's great. You get them at good ownership, and they usually print.
Yeah, one more thing to add. Who's the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy this year? I think this is half point PPR, but who's your guess? Number 2.
Half point?
Yeah. Who's number 2?
I mean,
CD Lamb.
Nope. CD Lamb is 6. Got a guess, son?
Number 2.
Chase is my second, but then go to Hoop first.
Chase is 4.
Yeah, it's not Jefferson.
No, Jefferson is, I believe he's
got to be better at full point.
He's 11. Yeah, he's probably better at full point. It is Deebo Samuel.
So,
yeah.
It's just
which is crazy.
It's an interesting thing to look at. Like he's a guy that like, I don't know, man, let's just ride him the rest of the year. Like, I mean, it's clear he doesn't have competition competing with him besides George Kittle. And George Kittle is a guy that I love to play in DFS. He's great at tight end, but they do like to use him as a blocker. I mean, you saw him just plow over Von Miller and get a little bit of help on that chop block. But when you got a guy like Von Miller on the other side, you need George Kittle there to kind of, be occupied. So don't sleep on Deebo Samuel to close out the year. He'll probably have
Who's 3?
Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's gone off. Oh, crazy Samuel too. I mean, he's just had some massive games. I mean, just massive games like that. It was just crazy. They're just running, and Samuel finds a way to just have this huge game. He's getting carries. Super valuable, obviously, for DFS purposes.
Yeah, and by the way, number 2 for running backs is Derrick Henry. Let's see how long it takes for him to go to fall out of the top 10. It might take a while, but
that's crazy.
Yeah. We'll be back in about an hour and a half, a little more than that, for the NBA Hardwood Show. Me, Mangone, DC. Small 3-game slate, but as always, there's money to be made, so make sure to tune into that this afternoon. All our NFL content will start dropping here throughout the week, and we'll be back next week to preview Week 12. So, make sure you tune in to all the Rumpier sports shows, but that's going to do it here for this show. For Mangone, for Title, I'm Hoop. We'll see you next week.